In this video, I'll be detailing the differences between the UK and the West in general versus Thailand, and why so many people are making the same decision as myself and choosing to live here. Firstly, has anyone noticed how the West has become based on fear?
Now, the rising cost of living, inflation under control, extremely hostile steps.
So is the virus back?
Now we have some breaking news.
London is in the midst of a looming economic crisis.
Anyway, where was I? Turn on any news channel and you'll realise that most of the headlines up there are all negative stories. Albeit there's a lot of bad things going on in the world, but there is a lot of good things as well. But focusing on that negative is just what sells, and that is what I hate. You walk down the street and you hear people talking about negative topics, negative discussions, and it's just like, really mentally draining. Now, I'm never going to talk about politics on this channel, but this point just has some correlation. I feel like the West has just got such a negative vibe to it nowadays. An example is in the UK, you ask someone how they're doing and the response you hear quite a lot is, same shit, different day. The majority of people hate their jobs, and when it comes to the weekend, a lot of people don't have enough money to go out and enjoy themselves. So you get kind of stuck in this like echo chamber of negative thoughts, just enhanced by the fear-mongering around us. Your environment is so important to your mental health and general well-being. So me being from like a small town in the UK, surrounded by negative vibes, it just generally got me down. This led me to vacate to a different country like Thailand, and let me tell you, it is a breath of fresh air. Thailand is called the land of smiles for a reason. No matter what day it is, no matter what's going on in the world, Thai people will always be wearing a smile. The sense of community here is so strong, and I feel it's something the West is lacking. As the more time goes on, the more we become divided. And that's my first point, that I feel like the West just has such a negative aura about it, and people become so divided and they don't even realise it. Thailand reminds me of like the UK 20 years ago, where, you know, people were less glued to their phone, they were more social, everyone was just more relaxed, people didn't get offended, everything, and so much more. But this is just my opinion, so tell me, like, do you agree? Now, my second point is the social life. Like in my last point, I feel like the West has become so divided. People are kind of in their own bubble and they don't want to let anyone else in. If you was to spark conversation with someone and say, oh, hey, how you doing? My name's Ryan. Immediately, I feel like people's first impression and their first thoughts are, what does this guy want from me? Whereas here, it's way more accepting for people to just talk and people to just socialise. There is a strong community vibe no matter where you go in Thailand. Like, I'm here in Pattaya, and there is a strong community vibe here, even be it a tourist destination. But even if you go into the more quieter areas of Thailand, you know, there's a massive, strong element of community. Now, being in a kind of tourist destination like Pattaya, you get the best of both worlds. You get the general Thai people, which are just amazing. They are very friendly, very smiley. And then you have the tourists, which are just here on holiday and they're just having a good time, so they generally have a good vibe about them as well. You do get some expats and some here which are kind of bring their misery from their home country over to Thailand, which is a bit of a shame. You see quite a lot of them over here. You can see some of them crawling the YouTube comments, and they're easy to find. But generally the whole vibe of Thailand, no matter where you go, it's a very kind of energetic place, and people are just kind of inviting, they're social. And I feel like even though you're technically a stranger to someone, if you're just kind of approaching them and just want to spark conversation, you're not like a stranger. You are just someone who just wants conversation. Whereas the West, as soon as you speak to someone that you don't know, immediately they think that you want something from them. Which brings me back to the point of where everyone's just in their own bubble and you're not really allowed in unless you know them. Now, I guess everyone's different and I understand that, but I just feel like Thailand is way more of a socially accepting place and has way more of a sense of community, whereas not so much the case for the UK. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is an obvious one, which is living expenses. If you're living in the West, it is not a myth that the price and cost of living has gone up so much in the last few years. The amount of friends I have that are working 2, if not 3 jobs just to put food on the table and get by is ridiculous. Now, that's just the cost of living in terms of like rent, mortgages, food and stuff. But the cost of absolutely everything has gone up in the world. And don't get me wrong, the price of things, even in Thailand, has gone up, but by a percentage, it's still very cheap. Now for me, I've got a beachside apartment for $300 a month. you couldn't get even close to that in the UK, even in the most cheap of cheap areas. For example, my town, a very small town in the corner of the UK, the average price of like an apartment, you're talking around about £500 to £600 for a 1-bedroom flat. And this would be not a great flat in not a great area. To get something of good equivalent, you're gonna have to pay at least like £700 a month, and that's not even including bills. I've had loads of Americans here as well that I spoke to who are just purely coming to Thailand because the cost of living in America is so high. Especially if you wanna live in an area that's, well, like worth living in. So the cost of living is just ridiculous in the West, and it's gotten to the point where people are struggling to keep their head above water with one job alone. Here in Thailand, it is still really cheap. Now my next point is the fact of how accessible this country is and how uncomplicated so many processes are here. An example is renting this condo. You know, I spoke to someone on Facebook who advertised it. The next day I come here, I have a look, I like it, I sign a couple of forms, she photographs my passport, and then the next thing, I've handed my deposit money over and the first month's rent, and I've moved in. It was like so quick, done within like 10 minutes. Whereas in the UK or any other country, there is so much admin processes, so many checks you have to go through. You have to wait on this day and that day and wait for this letter to come through. There is so much of a complicated process to so many things in the West. Another example is my motorbike. You know, same procedure. Went, saw a motorbike, 5 minutes later, I've signed a form, she's photographed my passport, 2,000 baht deposit, 2,500 baht for the motorbike for the month, and then I'm on my way. Buying essentials as well, albeit this is kind of a close-knit city and there is shops everywhere, but you can get anything within like a 5-minute drive. Another example of accessibility is like flights. I could be at an airport within 1 hour, and then any flights like within Thailand, it's going to be about 1,000 baht. So you're paying £20 for an hour or an hour and a half flight, and that is ridiculously cheap. Or I recently took a 12-hour coach from Bangkok to Phuket, and even that was like 1,000 baht. Ridiculously cheap and accessible because they are always running. Ordering a taxi as well, you don't technically need a bike or a car because how cheap and how accessible the taxis are here. You can get around no problem, and it's really quick. In the UK, if you want a taxi, you got to call up, wait 20 minutes. It's really expensive. Here, walk out any hotel and there's a taxi person there. Or on an app like Bolt, which is kind of like Uber. You know, you order a taxi, whether that be a motorbike, a car, a big luxury kind of car, and all of a sudden, you know, 1 minute later and they're there. And a 15-minute journey will cost you 40 baht. So this point is just to kind of say that, like, I feel like the UK has just become so complicated with so much admin processes that go on in the West, and it is a pain. Next point I want to talk about is nightlife availability. Now what I mean by this is like every day is a Saturday here in Thailand. Of course, I'm in the tourist destination of Pattaya, but really no matter where you are gonna find something to do of an evening. So what I mean by this is not going out every single night and getting drunk like 7 days a week, but what essentially I mean is every single night of an evening there is something to do. So you could go to the bars, like myself, about 3 times a week I go out. But all I do is go to the bars and just play pool, maybe with some of the girls, or just with my friends. I'd have 1 or 2 drinks and then that'll be a good night. But compare that to the West of like, you know, a Wednesday night, come like at 8, 9, 10 p.m, there is really nothing to do. Out here is way more social. So if you're out on an evening, could be even a Monday evening, there will be a massive vibe. It will be very energetic and there is always something going on. So come morning, evening or night, there's always something to do and the night never sleeps. So I can't do a comparison video without talking about the obvious. The weather. I'm from the UK and we love talking about the weather, trust me. Majority of the time in the UK, it is cold, it is windy, it is rainy. Our summer lasts 1 month and to be honest, that summer is not even that great. Our houses in the UK are built for keeping heat in. They are very well insulated and we don't really have air conditioning. So to be honest, year round, the UK is just not a nice place to be in terms of weather. And similarly in like Europe or the US, for example. Although obviously there are some countries which have a lot better weather. But the weather here is amazing. They don't really have any kind of winter. It is always warm year round. And of course they have a rainy season, but all that means is like maybe 1 or 2 hours of a day it may rain, but that stops. And the rain is like warm. It's not like really cold rain. You never really get cold here. I've been here for 3.5 months and I have worn nothing more than a t-shirt. One thing that a lot of people don't consider is how the weather affects your mood. Maybe you can relate in your country when it is rainy and it's windy and it's cold and maybe snowing. Look at everyone's attitude. Everyone generally has more of a negative vibe. I feel like if you're out at a supermarket while it's really raining outside, a lot of people just want to get their day over and done with, get their shopping and just go home. And then you watch people's attitudes change when the sun comes out. Everyone's in a much better vibe. They're going to the beach, you know, going out for a sunbathe. So think about that like year round as it is in Thailand, where it's always hot here. The sun's here pretty much year round. And I feel like that just gives much better vibe to everyone. So when I say the weather here is absolutely amazing. When it's hot, trust me, it's hot and it's unbearable, but they have air conditioning. You can always escape into a 7-Eleven and just be doused with air conditioning. So the comparison of the weather is very different, and I feel like coming here is just a much better vibe because the weather is so much better. Just as I'm talking about the weather, I just had to put my camera away really quickly because it might rain. Now you could say I timed that well. I was gonna go out and eat, but it looks like I'm cooking indoors. My next point is about safety. Now, a lot of you that are maybe coming here, maybe you're in your early 20s or something, and you're thinking, oh, I might want to go to a trip to Thailand. You might think about coming here solo. Then you'll have countless people, your friends, your family, you know, read comments online of saying, oh, Thailand, it might be a bit dangerous, don't go on your own. This is absolute nonsense. Thailand is a very relatively safe country, and it's very well traveled for solo travelers. Now, of course, I can't just say, yes, Thailand's safe, you're never going to experience any problems. Maybe you will. The most problems you're going to face are from tourists and other travellers. Like generally Thai people, there is a very, very low crime rate. When I went to Khao San Road my first time, I think I was about 27 when I went there, but the amount of 18-year-old solo travellers I saw, I just thought, wow, there are some people out there that are way more brave than me. So no matter whether you are 18, 19, 20 and you're thinking, oh, I really want to go solo traveling but I just don't feel safe, you're going to find so many people doing exactly the same thing around exactly the same ages. You're going to make so many friends and it's just going to be the best experience. An example of this is it could be midnight and you've gone out for some drinks and now you have to walk 10 minutes home on your own. If you're in some of the kind of tourist destinations like Pattaya, you know, you're never going to be without people around you. When you walk down the street, even if it's a side alley, it could be midnight, it could be 1, 2, 3 a.m. and there'll be someone cooking, there'll be a Thai person out on the phone to their friend or someone just sitting on the side of the street. So you'll always kind of be surrounded by people, so you won't kind of feel like alone and isolated. Anywhere else in the world, you know, there is so much crime that's happening and I feel like it's on the rise as more people get more desperate. The amount of kind of lootings which is going on with certain shops, you know, knife crime in the UK, gun crime in America, there is a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And no matter what country you look at, I feel like crime is on the rise and it's very hard to kind of pinpoint a country to be like, right, that country right there is a very safe place to live. So if you're someone that's contemplating, is Thailand a safe place and am I going to be safe when I travel there? I'm just going to say yes. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Now my next point is a big one, and this is dating. Dating in the UK and the West versus dating in Thailand is very, very different. Thai women are very kind of old-fashioned in the sense that the kind of stay-at-home wife is very much a part of their culture. A lot of these Thai women will be very happy when they're dating to kind of stay home, you know, they'll clean, they'll cook, they'll look after the children if you have them, where the man goes out and earns the money. Now, a lot of men want that nowadays. In the West and the UK, I feel like women power has kind of been on the rise, and that's a great thing, and that's fine. Now, statistically, women nowadays are getting higher education than men, which is causing women to get higher paid jobs. I listened to a podcast not too long ago from Chris Williamson, I believe, and he was just saying about the state of affairs, what's going on within like Western dating. Women are earning more money and then they still have the kind of mindset that they want the man to earn more than them. So the kind of dating pool of a woman was already quite small because of the kind of availability of how they could meet guys, and now it's become even smaller. And I say the availability of dating guys in terms of if a girl was to download a dating app like Tinder, she would be inundated with likes and matches, whereas a guy would download Tinder and they'd probably get like 10% of what a woman would. So her availability of dating and her choices are quite large. So her settling for someone who's like second best or someone who, you know, she doesn't really like that much is probably never going to happen, because around the corner, 100 likes later the next day, she could bump into her soulmate. So this just goes to show that like a lot of women's kind of like dating pool was already very small. What this has then caused is the average Western man has just been kind of tossed to the side, and it gets very, very lonely. You know, marriage rates are declining, you know, birth rates are declining, as women aren't dating as much and therefore not getting as many partners, which causes the women to be lonely and the men to be lonely. Whereas when you come to Thailand and you date a Thai woman, they are kind of like, they are all catering for you. If you was to go on a date with a Thai woman, you'd realise how kind of accommodating they are to you. So, you know, if you spilt something slightly down you or something, they would be the first to grab a napkin and help you out. You know, when all the cutlery arrives, they'll kind of get everything out and put it out for you. You know, if there's like a jug of water, they'll be pouring your drink. So they are kind of catering for you, and that's what a lot of Western men are craving right now. And of course, if you're in like a central area like Pattaya, you'll slowly realise that meeting women is very, very easy. Whether that be a bar girl, and like obviously if you just kind of go into a bar and buy her a drink, then of course she's going to sit and give you company. Now, is that the type of girl that you want to date? Who knows? Maybe it is. Now, if you just want to meet a Thai woman that's just got a job like at a cafe or something, I think sparking up conversation, even back to my first point where Thailand is very much more, there's much more of a community vibe, people are more social, and people are more kind of accepting to just talk to people they don't know. So if you're at a cafe and you like the waitress, you know, if you was to spark up conversation and potentially ask for her number, there's a very high chance that she'll probably give it to you if she likes you. I think if it was like a Western woman, I think the tables would be turned a little bit. I think she'd be a bit more closed off, a bit more reserved, and a bit like, no, I'm just doing my job. I just feel like Western women have a bit more of their defences up, you know. But dating in Thailand is very, very easy, as it's a social place. And Thai women, they do kind of veer towards dating more Western men rather than dating Thai men. Especially in the kind of tourist areas, of course. Obviously, go to other areas of Thailand, it's not the case. But I feel like dating in the West and dating in Thailand is very, very different. And for the average guy, coming and dating in Thailand is preferred. You have to be careful though, because most Thai women, like, and generally the culture here, if you're dating a Thai woman, you are kind of accepting that you may well support her, and you may be supporting her, the family as well. Many Thai women here in the tourist destinations have family in a very quiet, faraway part of Thailand, you know, very quiet small towns, which they don't really earn a lot of money. So if you was to be kind of dating a Thai woman, there may be kind of the point in time where, you know, the family would ask for a little bit of money just for help and support. So it's something you do have to factor in if you are focusing on kind of really getting a Thai girlfriend. But not everyone, just know that that does happen. Now, of course, I'm going to state the quick negative here, because not everything is positive. You're comparing Thailand to the UK, it's obviously pros and cons. The main con I want to talk about is loneliness. There are times you can feel lonely and a bit isolated. If you're not someone who has like a direct hobby, like playing golf or pool or something, and you don't really venture out to the bars, it can feel quite lonely. You're away from your friends back home, you're away from your family, and then generally meeting people might be a little bit hard. What a lot of people fall in the trap of doing, and I kind of had this experience myself, but I've luckily kind of got out of it, is that going to the bars quite frequently is such a huge dopamine rush. You meet friends, the women are kind of all over you, and you get all this attention, and then when you come back to your apartment, you're alone. Now, obviously, you don't want to be going out every single night. It's quite costly and obviously going to be bad for your health. So when you make a change from going from that scene to just kind of more focusing on yourself and really not really going out as much, you start meeting less people, you start missing that feeling of kind of all the attentions on you and like the women and just like the good vibes of like just the vibe of the nightlife here is just something that's so attractive. So coming off of that scene, it can be quite a lonely and almost depressing state that you'll go into. I have even spoke to some expat expats here who they kind of got almost addicted to the nightlife scene, and then they kind of went away from it and they started not speaking to friends because, you know, if you're speaking to this friend, then they'll probably invite you out, or they're always out on the night and you don't really want to join them because you want to kind of escape that kind of lifestyle. And then that leads you to just maybe being in your apartment just alone and without being surrounded by family and friends back home. So that is a big con of vacating here with like Thailand versus the West, is that you are going to be moving away from friends and family, and that for some people is a really, really big deal. Now, if you're someone who you're going to be coming to Thailand and you might want to visit the nightlife scene, visit some of the bars and stuff, you're going to have to watch this video here because there is certain mistakes you need to avoid when going to the bars. So give it a watch. You don't want to miss it.